So welcome everyone. Happy Juneteenth weekend, the celebration of our new national holiday, June 19th. So welcome and happy Father's Day to the fathers among us. Maybe they were all out having brunch this morning. So welcome everyone. And good to see many familiar faces. And if anyone's new, a very warm welcome to you. The class is offered by the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, IMCW, and the Center for Mindful Living, which is part of IMCW, which the class came out of the offering with the regular class in Tenleytown before the pandemic, and now we're online still, and great to have folks who can join us from more distant places. So good to be together today, and yes, and Ursula in Zurich. So welcome to you. I think you win the prize for the most distant today, as far as we know. Maybe somebody joining us from Japan, but so welcome everyone. And I'm Hugh Byrne, and the regular teacher of this Sunday morning class. And what I want to talk about today is the really one of the central teachings of the Buddha, which is what's called the Noble Eightfold Path. And some of you may be familiar with the Eightfold Path, perhaps many of you familiar with it. And so I want to share just kind of an overview of the path today. Different times we'll get into more detail into different elements of the path, but today kind of more of a big picture. And I think what I'd like to do is begin, as we have in recent weeks, with some meditation. And Emily's with us today. Yes, hi Emily, good to see you. And Emily will lead us in some movement. So we'll have a period of meditation and relatively short talk, I hope, and some movement, and then some sharing, and a meditation to finish. So a warm welcome to everyone. Let's begin with a sit. So if you'd like to find a posture that's relaxed and comfortable, let yourself arrive. Take your seat. Think of the archetype, the image of the Buddha sitting under the tree of awakening. Again, taking our seats. If you'd like, you can close your eyes, let your attention come inward, or keep them open with maybe a soft, unfocused gaze, if you prefer that. Sitting with the back straight, shoulders relaxed, inviting the shoulders to relax. Let the chest be open so you can breathe easily. Could do a brief scan of your body to see if there's any area where you might be tensing up or clenching muscles or holding tension, that you might relax a little bit more. You might pay particular attention to the face and the eyes. Just invite a relaxing of the eyes, of the face, the mouth, the jaw. The shoulders. We tend to carry tension, a lot of tension, just inviting the shoulders to relax. And the chest and the belly. inviting the belly to relax and soften. The arms, the hands, the legs. Relaxing the body. When we relax the body, the mind tends to also relax. And vice versa, when we relax the mind, the body tends to soften, relax. Can be helpful to begin a sitting with by taking some longer, deeper breaths to again just help calm, relax the body and the mind. Nice full deep in breath and a long out breath. Imagine you're breathing out any stresses or tension you might be holding, you might be carrying. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And when you're ready, letting the breath settle into its natural rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out. To help relax a little bit more, you might invite a smile to the face, to the corners of your eyes and the corners of your mouth. Smile sends a message that we can relax, be at ease. Relaxing the body and the mind. It can be helpful too to just have a short reflection on gratitude. We get so focused on what's wrong or what we're lacking or what we need to change, that we lose connection very easily with all that we have. So coming back to gratitude can be a helpful place to begin a sitting. Just think of the things in your life and the people that you appreciate, are thankful for. Allow yourself, if you can, to take in whoever comes up. A sense of appreciation, how that feels. And loved ones who support you, care for you. The conditions and the situations that maybe make life easier. You appreciate and are thankful for. Maybe it's your health, or some level of security, your practice, your spiritual practice, your religious practice. And just take in any feelings that come up. and take in the good. This can be a support for us as we deal with any difficulties, any challenges come up. Could say a silent thank you. Thank you to the billions of cicadas who've brought some joy to us over these recent weeks and are leaving us the beauty of nature and the animals and the trees, sun, the moon. Just opening to now to what's present in the body and the heart and the mind. Cultivating a receptive awareness to what's here, to what's showing up for you right now. The invitation to hold it all with kindness, with acceptance. Just making space for whatever bodily feelings are here right now. If you can welcome the guests, whoever's coming to visit, whatever is coming to visit right now. Make space for what's here. Let it come. Let it be. When it's ready, let it go. Whatever mood or emotions are here, you make space for them too. Our experience is transformed by how we meet it. You know, we meet the same situation with resistance, and it compounds the difficulty or the unpleasantness. And if we meet it with kindness and with acceptance, then changes what we're experiencing. So choosing to meet our experience with acceptance and with kindness, with curiosity. as a way of helping ground your attention, just to help you be here. It can be helpful to have a focus for attention. The breath is one of the most common focuses or objects we use in meditation. And so if that's helpful, just bringing awareness to the experience of the body breathing, just as it is, without controlling it. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. And when the mind moves into thought, as it will at times, sometimes it may be very busy, just gently and kindly let the attention come back. So not making thinking into a problem or something we need to change or do something about, but just noticing. When we notice when the mind has gone off and we come back with kindness, without judgment, then that becomes our practice. Just the being here and coming back and meeting what's here with acceptance, with kindness. This practice of just being aware of our breathing, coming back, being aware of any object in meditation can help strengthen the power of attention, which is essential to our well-being and happiness. Cultivating this capacity to be here, to be present, to be aware of what we're experiencing, and to come back when the mind goes off into thought. And we can cultivate attention in this focused way of being aware of our breathing, or being aware of sound, or a word, or a mantra. It's kind of a focused attention. And we can also choose, if we like, to open the awareness, just to let the mind be open, maybe imagining it bigger than your head, maybe even bigger than the room, as big as the sky, and just being aware of whatever comes up. Sounds, feelings, emotions, breathing, thoughts, all coming and going. in this open space of awareness. We could choose to move from a focused awareness to a more spacious awareness. If you like, you could just do that. Just notice how it is to move into that open, spacious awareness. Everything coming, staying for a while, and passing within this open space of awareness, like the sky, where the birds pass through and clouds, planes, all come and go, but the sky remains open and spacious. And in the same way, our mind, even though thoughts come up or emotions or feelings, it can all come and go, be known in this open space of awareness. And you can just notice the difference. You come back to the breath, a more focused attention. You can ask yourself, what's most helpful for me? It's not as though one is better. They're just different ways of being aware, being present, different ways of paying attention. And at one time, maybe if you're feeling spacey, unfocused, having an attention, a more focused attention on your breathing may be more helpful. But if the mind is more calm and relaxed, you can just rest in a more spacious awareness, imagining your mind like the sky, everything coming and going. So what helps you to be here with a sense of ease or well-being? Is from Li Po. The birds have vanished down the sky. Now the last cloud drains away. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. finish with Wendell Berry's The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water and feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So again, welcome everyone, and welcome to those who joined us, may have joined us since the meditation began. As I mentioned earlier, the theme I would like to talk about today is the noble Eightfold Path, and it's, you know, on one level, you know, because it's another of these Buddhist lists, you know, the 4 of these and the 5 of these and the 7 of those and the 8 of those, the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 5 hindrances and the Eightfold Path and the 4 noble truths and the 3 refuges and the 5 spiritual faculties and all of that. And you know, it's kind of how the teachings came down is through being remembered, and obviously through having lists. That was a helpful way of doing that. And it can be, I know for some people it can be like challenging, oh, what are the 5 of these and the 8 of these? And you know, it's not necessarily the ideal way for us in our current time to kind of our way of understanding things, you know, particularly long lists of things. But you know, I want to kind of say that this particular list, the Eightfold Path, is a very, very central one in the Buddhist teachings and Buddhist tradition. It's really about every aspect of our lives, and I want to just begin with a quote from Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi is, probably many of you know, is probably the preeminent translator of the Buddha's teachings. This is one of his books, is this lovely little book actually on the Noble Eightfold Path, called the Noble Eightfold Path, The Way to the End of Suffering. I just want to read a little from his preface on this. He says, "The essence of the Buddha's teaching can be summed up in 2 principles, the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. The first, the Noble Truths, covers the side of doctrine, and the primary response it elicits is understanding. So understanding these 4 Noble Truths. The second, the Eightfold Path, covers the discipline in the broadest sense of that word, and the primary response it calls for is practice. So you could say the 4 Noble Truths are about the kind of the teachings, the understanding. The Eightfold Path is about really about the practice, kind of where if you like to use that cliche, where the rubber meets the road. in the structure of the teaching, these two principles lock together into an indivisible unity called the Dhamma Vinaya, the doctrine and discipline. Dhamma meaning the teachings, Vinaya really meaning the rules or the practices, or in brief, the Dharma. The internal unity of the Dharma is guaranteed by the fact that the last of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of the way, is the Noble Eightfold Path. And I'll say more about this in a minute. The fourth of the Noble Truths is the Noble Eightfold Path, while the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, right view, is the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So that may sound complicated, but he says, thus the two principles penetrate and include one another. So the Four Noble Truths includes the Eightfold Path as the fourth of the truths, and the Eightfold Path includes the Four Noble Truths, as that's the first kind of practice. Wise understanding is really understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So he says, thus the two principles penetrate and include one another. The formula of the Four Noble Truths containing the Eightfold Path and the Noble Eightfold Path containing the Four Truths. And he goes on to say, given this integral unity, it would be pointless to pose the question, which of the two aspects of the Dharma has greater value, the doctrine or the path? And then he says, but if we did risk the pointless by asking that question, the answer would have to be the path. The path claims primacy because it's precisely this that brings the teaching to life. The path translates the Dharma from a collection of abstract formulas into a continually unfolding disclosure of truth. It gives an outlet from the problem of suffering with which the teaching starts, and it makes the teaching's goal, liberation from suffering, accessible to us in our own experience, where alone it takes on authentic meaning. So what he's saying really is that the Noble Eightfold Path, you know, if you had to choose, was even more important than the Four Noble Truths about suffering and the end of suffering, because it's where the practice really is brought into, you know, confrontation with our lives, with reality, with the world. So what I want to talk about the path today, you know, as really the very core of all of the Buddhist teachings. And everything that we're doing together today, our practice of meditation, our sharing of the teachings and reflecting on the teachings is really part of the path. We are walking the path in engaging with the teachings, engaging with the practices as we're doing today. And I want to highlight some of the main features to begin with of the Eightfold Path and where it leads. And firstly, to say it's a path to freedom, to the end of suffering in this very life, in this lifetime. This Eightfold Path, the Buddha says, leads to the end of suffering, or can lead to the end of suffering. And I'm going to put up a graphic. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to put this up, a slide. This is the fourth noble truth, the path to the end of suffering. Do this, and then I'm going to do this. There we go. So as we said, it's the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, and I just run through these very quickly. The first noble truth points to the existence of suffering, what's called dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness in the Pali language. You know, as Philip Moffat, who wrote a book on the Four Noble Truths, called this first noble truth the existence of suffering. He said suffering is an unavoidable reality of ordinary human existence that is to be known and responded to wisely. So it's an unavoidable reality of ordinary human existence. It's not, everybody doesn't have to experience suffering, because as the Four Noble Truths lay out, there is an end to suffering. When we let go of clinging, we can experience the end of suffering. But it's an unavoidable reality of ordinary human existence until we've gone beyond suffering. The second, and this first noble truth, the goal or the task is to understand it fully. The second noble truth locates the origin of suffering in craving, in an unskillful relationship with our experience. We're wanting things we don't have. We're wanting to change things we don't like. And it's this unskillful relationship with our experience that leads to suffering. It's not just that bad things happen or that we experience sadness. You know, a sad thing, a quote, sad thing can happen, but we don't necessarily need to suffer around it. It's only when we get into a struggle with the situation or the experience that the suffering comes. The suffering, we're really implicated in the suffering. It's something that we're doing that is not wise or not skillful that's really creating the suffering. It's the clinging or the craving that creates the suffering. And the second noble truth, craving, is to be abandoned entirely. That's the goal or the task for this second noble truth. The third noble truth is that there's an end to suffering, what the Buddha called nirvana, you know, the complete ending of craving, of greed, of hatred, of delusion. This state, this end of suffering, nirvana, where there's no more clinging, there's no more, all of the origins, all of the causes of suffering have been eradicated. So this third noble truth is to be realized. And then what we're focused on today, the fourth noble truth, lays out the path to the end of suffering. And it's what they called a noble eightfold path. It's noble because cultivating this path helps us cultivate a nobility of heart, of spirit, you know, a goodness of heart and spirit. And it's noble in that the noble ones have walked the path before. And this fourth noble truth is to be developed. And the four noble truths really relate to all aspects of our experience, our thoughts, our intentions, our emotions, our speech, our actions, our work, our mind states. All of these are encompassed by the Eightfold Path. None of it is left out. It's seen, the Buddha talked about it as a middle way between hedonism and asceticism. You know, it's not punishing ourselves, but it's also not living, you know, luxuriously, you know, in an unskillful way. It's a middle way between, you know, excess on one side or another. And it involves cultivating skillful or wise action in 8 different areas. And these areas break down into three main components. Cultivating wisdom. 2 elements of the path are concerned with cultivating wisdom, wise understanding and wise intention. 3 of the elements of the path, speech, wise action, and wise livelihood, are concerned with cultivating virtue, living wisely, living skillfully, living kindly. And 3 elements of the path are to do with training the mind. So we train the mind through mindfulness, through wise effort, through concentration. We live wisely and skillfully through speaking kindly, compassionately, truthfully, acting in ways that don't cause harm to others or to ourselves, working, in ways that we don't create suffering for ourselves, for others, and the world. And in this way, we cultivate wisdom. So these are the 8 elements of the Eightfold Path. This path has been walked before by wise people for thousands of years. This eightfold, these 8 elements of the path. It's a trustworthy and reliable path. And here I'm going to read you a little bit from the Buddha's teachings. This is from Gil Fronsdal's book on the Eightfold Path called Steps to Liberation. Steps to Liberation. Oh, here. Here it is, Steps to Liberation. The Buddha's Eightfold Path. And this is from the Buddha's teachings, from the Connected Discourses. He says, it's as if a person traveling in the forest were to see an ancient path, an ancient road traveled by people of former times. Following it, the person would see an ancient city, an ancient capital, inhabited by people of former times, complete with parks, groves and ponds, walled, delightful. Then going to the ruler of the country, the person would say, Your Majesty, while traveling in the forest, I saw an ancient path. I followed it and found an ancient city, an ancient abandoned capital. Your Majesty, restore that city. In the same way, I saw an ancient path, an ancient road traveled by the awakened ones of former times. And what is that ancient path, that ancient road traveled by the awakened ones of former times? It's the noble Eightfold Path. Right view, right aspiration or intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. That is the ancient path, the ancient road leading to direct knowledge. So this is a path that has been walked by people for thousands of years. It's a reliable and trustworthy path. It's a path to the end of, leading to the end of suffering, to a life free of suffering in this very life, not in some future, future life or in, eternity, but here and now in this very life. If we follow this path, it's a path that we have to walk ourselves, even though it's been walked before by other people. We need to engage with each of the elements of the path to cultivate the qualities that lead to letting go, to peace, and to freedom. So this path of training leads to the end of suffering. It consists of these 3 main areas of training in wisdom, panya, in ethics, living virtuously, what's known as sila. You could call this the moral component of the path, and training the mind, samadhi, wise effort, wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. So it's a path that leads to the end of suffering. It leads to the deepest freedom, to the deepest peace, to the deepest happiness. And I want to talk just for a few minutes about the way that it leads to peace and happiness and freedom. And I also just want to point to the ways in which each of the different components and the elements of the path support each other. So they're not just discrete things. Oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should train your mind in this way, you should live in this way. Excuse me, you should cultivate wisdom in this way. But each of the elements of the path supports the other elements of the path. So for example, if we were to begin with just by looking at the mental training component. This is what we do here when we meditate together, or when you sit and meditate on your own. You cultivate wise effort. That is the effort to develop skillful qualities and abandon unskillful ones. Cultivate mindfulness, this present moment awareness of our experience, without judgment, with kindness, with acceptance, just as we were doing a few minutes ago. And wise concentration, how we can develop the powers of attention, of focus, of concentration, and cultivate very beautiful states of heart and mind. When we cultivate these qualities, one thing that they do is they lead to abandoning unskillful qualities. For example, when we bring awareness, when we bring mindfulness to our experience, we can see where we're holding on, where we're getting caught up in clinging. I'm wanting things to be a certain way. And in seeing that clearly, we can let go of clinging. And when we let go of clinging, we experience peace. When you notice that you're, getting angry with somebody, or with being caught up in traffic, and you're kind of, oh no, I don't like this. Why did it have to happen? And then maybe there's some wisdom that comes that says, okay, well, this is how things are right now. And you bring acceptance to that experience. Then there's a palpable feeling of kind of letting go, rather than being caught up in wanting things to be different and being angry or being stressed. Okay, this is how it is right now. I can't do anything about it. Let me be at peace with this. And that letting go brings, maybe it just brings a little bit of peace, but but still, points to the deepest peace that can come from letting go more deeply. As Ajahn Chah says, and I quote almost every week, let go a little and you'll experience a little peace, little freedom. Let go a lot and you'll experience a lot of freedom, a lot of peace. Let go completely and you'll experience complete peace, complete freedom. Your struggles with the world will be at an end. So when we cultivate the mental training, the samadhi component of the path, we experience peace, the peace of letting go. We experience freedom from unpleasantness, freedom from suffering. It's like, the Buddha would often give images of, like a prisoner released from jail, or like somebody been released from a debt. There's that sense of release, that sense of peace. When we cultivate concentration, we can experience deep states of well-being, of happiness. Particularly when we do it over time, longer periods of time, or we sit on retreat over a number of days or a number of weeks, the mind can get into extremely peaceful and absorbed states that, much deeper states of happiness and well-being than we typically experience in daily life. So this is a path in training the mind in this way. In these ways, we cultivate peace, we cultivate happiness, we cultivate freedom, the freedom that comes from letting go of clinging, letting go of hatred, letting go of greed, etc. So, and in training the mind in mindfulness, wise effort, wise concentration, what we can do is we develop the wisdom component of the path. So through the mental training component, we strengthen our wisdom. We see clearly the Four Noble Truths. We see clearly that clinging leads to suffering, and letting go of clinging leads to letting go of suffering, leads to freedom. So the mental training component supports the wisdom component of the path. It supports our understanding, our insight into the way things are, and the freedom that comes with that. The mental training component of the path supports the ethical component, because when we see clearly how holding on leads to suffering, and letting go leads to freedom, then we're much more inclined to engage in the world with our families, with our work colleagues, with people in the community, with kindness in our speech, with kindness and compassion in our actions and in our work. So the mental training component supports the ethical component of the path. When we cultivate the ethical component of the path, the wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, what happens when we choose to make our speech, well, we ensure that our communications, our speech is based on kindness, on truth, avoiding harsh speech, avoiding slanderous speech, not gossiping and getting caught up in idle chatter and gossip, as it's called. When we speak in that way, when we act in ways that are designed not to harm ourselves or others or the world, when we act with kindness, when our livelihood is designed to bring kindness and compassion into the world and not to create division and separation and suffering, then what happens is that we experience greater peace and happiness. We experience the peace of blamelessness. I'm going to quote again from Gil Fronsdal. He says, living without intentionally harming any living being is a source of happiness called the bliss of blamelessness. You think if you're doing harmful things and you're telling lies to people, you're causing division among people, then your inner sense of well-being is not going to be we're not going to feel very peaceful. If we lie to people, we know we've got to remember things. Oh, what did I say to them? Oh, I've got to be consistent in what I said to them. That's what I said to them before. But if our actions and our speech are motivated by truth, by kindness, by compassion, then we don't have to worry about things. We don't have to walk around saying, oh, that person's going to hate me because I did something mean to them before, because we're cultivating compassion and kindness, or that I've said something that was untrue or unkind before. So in living and speaking and working in ways that are compassionate, kind, wise, thoughtful, then it helps to create a sense of happiness, of well-being, and of blamelessness. As Gil Fronsdal says, this is an ease in the mind from being free of any reason to be reproached, either by oneself or by others. The absence of remorse, fear, and criticism is something to appreciate. It's a joy that can grow from reflection on a mind that has a clear conscience. A mind with a clear conscience is conducive for meditation practice. So if we cultivate virtue, living wisely, living kindly, how is our mind going to be when we sit down to meditate? Or conversely, if you've been out stealing and robbing and lying all day, what happens when you sit down on your meditation cushion? You're gonna, if you do, you're gonna, the mind is going to be filled with anger, with falsehoods, with greed, with craving, and the mind isn't going to be able to be settled. So, the more we cultivate living wisely, living ethically, the more we support the mental training component of the path. So each of the elements of the path support each other. Really, at the center of the Eightfold Path is the wisdom component, wise understanding and wise intention. we need some level of wisdom, of understanding to even get on the path, to even want to consider practicing mindfulness, meditation, wise speech, wise action, to follow the path of the Dharma. There has to be some level of understanding. Maybe it's understanding the possibility that we can experience more freedom, more happiness, more well-being, that we can let go, that there's a freedom that can come with letting go of clinging. And maybe we see the possibilities of the path to live a happy, peaceful, free life. So we need some level of understanding to even get on the path. And as we deepen these practices in meditation, in living wisely and compassionately, in cultivating wisdom, the more our understanding grows, the more we see clearly the way that clinging and craving lead to suffering, and letting go of clinging, craving, delusion lead to greater freedom in our lives. So each of the elements of the path leads to greater peace, greater happiness, greater well-being, more freedom. And each of the elements of the path supports all of the other elements. So it's not like we walk this path in a linear way. We do we gain understanding, and then we cultivate intention, and then we work on our speech and our action. We're working on all of them, and they're all interpenetrating and all supporting each other, so that we can ultimately abandon clinging, live wisely, live skillfully, and attain freedom from suffering in this very life. So I have a number of slides here. I'm not going to go through them, and maybe in one of the future classes I will, but just go into a little more detail here about each of the components of the path. That the wisdom component, wise understanding, helps us to see things as they are, helps us to understand things, through cause and effect, what's called karma, that our actions have consequences, and seeing things through the light of the Four Noble Truths, suffering and the end of suffering. And our intentions really bring our understanding into action. They're the link between our understanding and our actions in the world. And our intentions should embody letting go or renunciation of clinging, goodwill and non-harming. And then the ethical component, wise speech, really means to not to engage in lying, slanderous speech, harsh speech, or idle chatter or gossip. It's good to ask ourselves, about anything we say, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? Does it cause harm to anyone? Is it the right time to say it? Why am I saying it? So it's not just telling the truth, but it's also being concerned about the effect of our speech and our motivation for our speech. Is it helpful? Is it needed? Our actions, wise action is to avoid killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, which is also under the speech, and avoiding intoxicants that cause heedlessness. So each of these, encourages us to act with reverence, with generosity, with respect, to be sensitive to our communications, and to cultivate a mind that can, that supports happiness and well-being, and only taking substances that do that support our clarity of mind. Our livelihood should be, concerned with helping others, helping avoiding actions, avoiding livelihood that leads to suffering for ourselves and for others and for the world. And then our practices of meditation, wise effort, preventing unwholesome states from arising and abandoning them when they do, and developing wholesome mind states and continuing them when we've developed them. And mindfulness, bringing mindfulness to the body, to emotions, to mind states, and to our understanding more generally. And cultivating wise concentration, helping focus the mind so that the mind can be a source of happiness and freedom for each of us. So we cultivate these qualities of heart and mind through the Eightfold Path. So this is like a very, very short overview of the Buddha's teachings of the Noble Eightfold Path, the fourth of the Noble Truths, the noble truth of the path to the end of suffering. If we follow this path, cultivating ethics, training our mind through meditation and mindfulness, and cultivating wisdom, this will ensure that our lives are, that we alleviate and lessen suffering in our lives, and that ultimately that we, as we practice, as we deepen our practice in these 8 areas, that we arrive at the end of suffering, that we can attain a life free from suffering, free from unhappiness, free from clinging. If it's helpful, I'm more than happy to share those visuals with you, and invite you to reflect on this path. A path that's trustworthy, that's reliable, that we can explore ourselves in our lives. And we can, as the Buddha said, see for yourself. What happens when you do cultivate wise speech? When you act more kindly and compassionately, when you speak more kindly, more wisely, more truly, does it have an effect on others? Does it have an effect on your own sense of well-being, your own sense of integrity, of authenticity? What happens when we cultivate these qualities? What happens when we cultivate them in meditation, when we practice opening to our experience and letting go? Does it help to increase our understanding, our insight, our wisdom? And ultimately, does it lead to greater happiness and peace in our own lives? Because if it doesn't, then that's a good signal to say, well, maybe there's another path, or one of two things. Maybe we're not engaging with the path in a skillful way. That could be the case. Maybe we're very, very dedicated to finding freedom from suffering, but we start craving that, that in an unskillful way. We try too hard, we over effort, and then we find we're getting really, distressed or unhappy because we're not getting to where we're wanting to get to. And that may not be the problem with the path. It may be the problem with the way we're engaging with the path. And then maybe getting some advice and maybe easing off and letting go of that sense of getting somewhere, and then just kind of more practicing with a sense of letting be, but with wise intention and with a sense of direction, but without clinging. So see for yourself, is this a worthy path? Is it a trustworthy path? Is it a reliable path? And is it leading to greater happiness and well-being for you? So I invite you to reflect on this. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll chat a little bit more in a little bit. But first, invite Emily to lead us in some mindful movement. Thank you.
let me invite you all to stand up and take a moment to just reach out in any way you might wish to, and then twist from side to side, engaging with the space around you, opening up, feeling the breeze against your arms. And then open up wide, lifting your head and chest. And reach up and gather the energy, cultivating the light above, the sky, the clouds, the stars beyond, and bring that energy to your heart. And gather the energy of this community, the love and tenderness and compassion we share. And then gather the energy of the earth, that which provides so much abundance, and bring that to your heart. Now we'll move into Cactus Arms, just for a bit of shoulder rotation. Inhale in neutral. Exhale, lower your arms. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, drop. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, drop. And lift up. Then reach up and grasp your left wrist in your right hand. You might spread your feet a little. And then reach out to the right and tilt. Allowing your body to sink down, feeling the pull of gravity. And up. Switch hands. And then as you reach up, then tilt down. Softening, sinking. And inhale up. Float your arms down and move your shoulders independently. And the other way. And then come to center. Draw your shoulders up to your ears and allow them to sink. Up to your ears and sink. And then roll them back and forward. Now grasp your hands at the back of your waist and inhale, lifting your head and chest. Exhale, draw your hands below your waist. Inhale back to neutral. And then lifting your head and chest, draw your arms together, lengthening your elbows, and back to your waist. Last time, inhale, lifting up. Exhale, drawing your hands down, opening up your chest. Then back to your waist, float your arms up. Do whatever dance you might wish in this moment. Hug yourself for a moment. And then bring your hands back above your knees, stretching out into a flat back. This may be where you want to remain. And if you have no vertigo issues, just drop your head, drop your shoulders, drop down to the pull of gravity, lengthening your spine. Your head is lower than your heart. Deep breath in. You could exit with a sigh. And then bring your hands up to above your knees. Roll up the spine. And as you do, bring your hands to heart center and release to the sky. Release to the room and to the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Lovely. Beautiful. Thank you. I think what we'll do today is just invite anyone who has any anything you'd like to share, any question or anything, any sharing from your experience, and we'll stay in the full group. Please feel free, if anyone would, if you'd like to share anything in the chat as well. And so if you want to, you can indicate with your hand or with your through the icon that you'd like to share anything, ask anything. How are you doing today? Claude?
If I manage to unmute.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Right now, I am in the middle of a huge transition, so I feel a bit intimidated by the whole project of the Eightfold Path. I can see how it is mutually reinforcing, so it's a good news. You can start from one bit, but it sounds like a very nice virtue cycle. But when you have a tendency to be anxious or worrying and so forth, it's quite, the mental training is quite difficult. So I don't know if you have any recommendation on what to focus on first, priority.
Any recommendation? I missed the last part, Claude. Any recommendation?
On what to focus on, or
Yeah.
the priorities in very troubled time.
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, I think if you look at the Eightfold Path, you know, as a whole, it can it can seem like a lot. But it's really, I mean, it's really addressing our lives, and we've got a lot, you know, a lot happening, a lot we're engaged in, both internally and, you know, engagement with others and in the world. And what the Eightfold Path is doing, I think, is providing a framework, a kind of guidelines for, you know, I think even if you look at it in kind of negative terms, don't, you know, kill or harm, you know, living beings. Don't take what's not freely given. Don't, you know, speak in abusive, harsh, harmful ways. That kind of provides guideposts, riverbanks, if you like, to know that when you're doing any of those things, you're going outside of them, and that you're going to be suffering, that you're going to suffer if you do. And if you remain within those banks, then there's a sense of reliably moving in the direction that you want to go in. Similarly, with the meditation part of the path, where the training in wise effort and wise mindfulness concentration can help us to untangle ourselves from, you know, what we get caught up in. And so they become, you know, the path becomes a way of seeing our lives more clearly, engaging internally with our mind states and with our emotions, as well as externally, in ways that will lead to our greater well-being and and to our happiness. So how do we go about doing it? One thing we do, I think that's, an essential foundation is really what we're doing here, which is to look inward, to look at our experience, to examine, how we're living, how we're thinking, where are we putting our attention? I've often used that the term from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote about flow states, who talks about attention as psychic energy, and he said, and we can ask, where am I putting my psychic energy? Or in Mary Oliver's words, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What am I doing? At any given time, is this leading to my well-being and happiness? And is it leading, to the well-being and happiness of others? And if I see myself, wasting time, not to judge ourselves or beat ourselves up, but just to see, oh, that's actually going in a different direction. Or if I'm judging myself or, gossiping about or passing on, information about somebody we don't like to somebody else, and we're creating division, we can see that that's not leading to our well-being and happiness. It's causing us suffering ourselves, that sense of separation that we feel, the anger or the hatred or whatever we're cultivating in those ways isn't good for us. It isn't helpful for others. It's creating divisions and separation. And so to be able to explore our lives through the framework of these 8 elements can move us in the direction of our greater well-being. And I say certainly starting with our internal practices through our meditation and our mindfulness in daily life, to really explore, what am I doing? How am I acting? How am I speaking? Is this leading to more well-being, to more happiness? And so starting with, meditating every day as a way of, providing an opportunity to really explore what's going on in my mind. Is it moving me? Am I moving in a helpful, beneficial direction? And then consciously, using the elements of the path to explore our speech. We're not necessarily doing this every moment, but to bring awareness to, like, look at we could take a session or more with each of these elements of the path. Let's take wise speech. How am I, if you look at your speech, your communication, not just what you say through your vocal words, through the mouth, but also what you write, what you share in other communicate in other ways, maybe also gestures, without even saying words, just what are we conveying to another person? Is this helpful? Is what I'm saying helpful? Is what I'm communicating helpful? Is it the right thing to say? Does it need to be said? A lot of our words are things maybe, we fill up space. Is that actually helpful? Is it necessary? Is this the right time to say this thing? So we can, at different times put the spotlight on different areas, on our speech, on our communications, on our actions. Like, how, they become a framework for looking at our life. And doing it with compassion and kindness, because if we do it from a standpoint of judgment or blame, then it's only going to compound the suffering. But
that's the difficult part.
What did you say, Claude?
That's the difficult part, doing it from
doing it in a kind way.
Because the habit of judging and self-blaming is so entrenched. Maybe
So,
that's the effort has to be made from there.
yeah. So starting where, where the boot pinch, go there, go to the place where it's difficult. As you said, this is the hard part for you because there's judgment, there's criticism. So when that arises, can you meet that with compassion? Consciously use that, do that as a practice. Judgment comes up. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm so useful. I'm always going. Okay, can I just meet that with kindness? May I be happy? Just wishing yourself kindness, replacing the judgment with kindness. And if that's the area that's really calling for attention, it may be consciously cultivating self-compassion is a place to go. A course on self-compassion, a 6 or an 8-week course on self-compassion, we can develop self-compassion. It's not, what we've done, if we're judging and critical of ourselves, what we've done is we've developed habits of mind to be judging, to be unkind, to be critical. And just as we've cultivating those habits of mind, we can abandon them. We can turn them in, we can replace them with habits of kindness, habits of compassion, habits of generosity. So make that then the place where you pay attention, and then go out from there, to whatever else is calling for attention. It's a gradual path. It tends not to, awakening doesn't happen, immediately, suddenly. Occasionally it can, we get great insights and letting go, but typically it's a more gradual process, and bringing to it as much kindness and compassion as we can will support us on the path much more than harshness or criticism or judgment, etc. So wishing you well on that in that practice, Cloud.
Thank you.
And Diane has shared, when I'm struggling, self-compassion, loving kindness, and equanimity practices are so helpful. Take good care, Claude. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Diane. And anyone else like to share anything? Any questions, any observations? Emily, please.
Hi, yeah, I've just loved the going over the Four Noble Truths and the idea of the doctrine versus these actions that we can take, that the Eightfold Path. I think taking any of them starts me on the path. But the one I really value is intention. And that's, what is my intention here? Is it kindness? And then is it kind to me? So, yeah, it's just been a really illuminating time. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, it's so essential. It's what manifests our commitment in the world. It's our direction, it's our compass, it's moving us towards where we're wanting to go. And it's, as you say, it's so essential that our intentions be motivated by kindness and compassion rather than by clinging or by aversion or other unskillful states, which will only lead us to suffering. So I agree, just coming back to intention. What is my intention? What is my deepest intention? What do I care most deeply about? What am I trying to, what am I trying to do with, these actions, or what I'm saying, or what I'm doing? So thank you for sharing that. Maybe we'll have another a period of meditation to finish, and then some announcements, and finish today. So invite you to just come back inward again. If you like, close your eyes and notice what's present. Notice what you're feeling in your body, what mood or emotions might be present, what's going on in the mind. And inviting a kind, receptive attention to what's here right now. How is it to make space for whatever you're experiencing? Just turning the attention towards your bodily, mental, emotional experience, whatever's present right now. Just turning the attention towards that and making space for whatever is here right now, whatever's present. The teachings say that our suffering comes really from getting entangled with our experience, craving what we don't have, or trying to get rid of something we don't like, or spacing out, getting distracted. And if we can let go of the struggle, then we untangle ourselves from suffering. As Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa said, there's no need to struggle to be free. Ending the struggle is itself freedom. No need to struggle to be free. Ending the struggle is itself freedom. So notice if you're in a struggle with your experience, wanting something to be a certain way, wanting to get rid of an experience, a feeling. And just letting things be, letting this moment be, letting this experience be, making space for what's here. Can this moment be a moment of peace, a moment of happiness, of freedom? Every moment has the possibility of peace, of freedom, of happiness, unless we get in the way, unless we're in a struggle with the way things are. wanting something, wanting to have something, or wanting to get rid of something. So just notice, is there holding, is there clinging? Is it possible to relax, let go of the holding? Just meet this moment with kindness, with acceptance, without judgment. We could ask, what is in the way of being really peaceful, really free in this moment? What's in the way? And if we really pay attention, or if there is some feeling of something in the way, we'll tend to find some clinging, some holding, some resisting. And we can invite acceptance of this moment. Letting this moment come, letting this feeling, this breath, this sound, whatever, come and go. This is the moment from Marie Howe. Oh, the coming out of nowhere moment when nothing happens. No, what have I to do today list? Maybe half a moment, the rush of traffic stops. The whir of I should be, I should be, I should be, slows to silence. The white cotton curtains hanging still. Oh, the coming out of nowhere moment when nothing happens. No, what have I to do today list? Maybe half a moment, the rush of traffic stops. The whir of I should be, I should be, I should be, slows to silence. The white cotton curtains hanging still. The white cotton curtains hanging still. Just taking a moment to appreciate your effort, your practice today. Connecting with everyone else here. Wishing them well. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. And ending with a wish of kindness to all beings everywhere. May they be well, safe, free from suffering. May they awaken and be free. So we'll just finish with a few announcements. Dan has shared what I was going to mention, which is some upcoming retreats. One on from July 9th to 11th is an online retreat on the practices of loving kindness and compassion and joy and equanimity. Rebecca and I are teaching online 9th to the 11th of July. And then we have one in October, which is in person in just southern Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half from DC, opening to life's 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows, October 1st to the 3rd. And then a retreat in Ireland next summer, June 18th to 25th. In the west of Ireland, looking forward to that. And I've got a class beginning on September 20th on the Noble Eightfold Path. So I hope you'll be able to join me for that. Registration will open in 2 days, I believe, which is 3 months before the class starts. So I've put that one in there as well. I think that's there. Yeah, the Eightfold Path is there. So, just to mention, as I think probably everyone knows, but if anyone's new, that there's no charge for the class, no set cost, but you're invited if you are able and inclined to make a donation. Dana, D-A-N-A, generosity is how the teachings have come down through over 2,500 years. Thank you for sharing that in the chat, Margaret. And those are the different ways that you can give, Dana. And so, Margaret, are you doing the announcements today?
I am indeed, and I think your talk so beautifully pointed directly to the calendar for this week. There are so many.
Your practice. Thank you, Emily, again for wonderful movement, and Dan for stepping in to do the ground control to Major Tom, guiding the ship. And Margaret, thank you, and thank everyone, Michelle and everyone. And look forward to seeing you next Sunday at the same time, and encourage you, as Margaret said, to really check out the many wonderful offerings of the Center for Mindful Living and of IMCW. Happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. Cloud says today is the summer solstice. Happy summer solstice, and have a great week, everyone.